My name's Miles. I'm 23 years old and I just wrapped up college with a double major in computer science and business. First one in my whole family to even set foot on a college campus, let alone walk out with top honors. For most people, that might earn you a cake or at least a pat on the back. But in my family? It was just another Tuesday unless we were talking about Kadia's handmade jewelry side hustle on Etsy or Drew's weekend warrior football team. Then suddenly everyone had time to burn, energy to spare, and money they somehow couldn't find for anything else. But me? For brutal years of grinding through classes, juggling internships, late-night shifts, and hanging on to scholarships like Lyft miles, that barely got a shrug. Still, I kept showing up. I always had. Growing up in a house where attention was kind of like a limited-time deal, I learned early on how to make up for being invisible. I mowed the lawn when Dad's back gave out. I carried the groceries in when Drew bailed for the third time. I even paid the heating bill last winter after Kadia overdrafted her account and came up short on rent. I played the part responsible son, supportive cousin, the guy who didn't make a fuss. But when graduation came and went, no one in the stands, no text, no late night, we're proud of you, I figured I'd take one last swing at trying to feel like I mattered. So, I dipped into what was left of my savings and rented this rooftop space downtown. Nothing flashy, but it had a decent view, string lights, and built-in speakers. I ordered all the favorites, Drew's teriyaki wings, Kadia's go-to vegan flatbread, even those coconut shrimp grandma's weirdly obsessed with. Wasn't looking for gifts or some long speech. Just wanted one evening. One single night where I didn't feel like wallpaper. I even put together digital invites, real ones, with calendar reminders and RSVP links. I followed up a week before, then again the night before. Everyone replied the same way, can't wait. You earned this. Little spark of hope lit up in my chest. Should have snuffed it out then and there. The night of the party, I got there early. Wanted everything set, food hot, drinks cold, playlist just right. I wore my only nice suit, a slim black one that had started to hang a little loose from the stress weight I'd been shedding. I stood by the entrance like a greeter at a fancy restaurant, smiling every time the elevator dinged like some loyal puppy waiting for someone to come home. But no one came. 5 minutes turned to 30. 30 crawled into an hour. The catering staff kept giving me that look, half pity, half wondering when they could start packing up. I kept refreshing my phone, checking messages, scanning traffic updates, trying to convince myself maybe they were throwing me a surprise and I just walked into a setup. Then at exactly 8:47 p.m., I got a ping. It was a photo. Kadia had posted it and tagged everyone. Drew, my parents, Uncle Victor, even Grandma. All of them sitting cozy on the living room couch in matching pajamas, pizza boxes piled high, blankets flung everywhere. The caption? Family movie night. We needed this. I just stared. My fingers locked up. I zoomed in on the background. Right there behind them was the grad photo I had mailed out weeks before, stuck to the wall, crooked, barely visible behind some leftover balloon bouquet from Kadia's latest, soft launch. That was the moment it clicked. They weren't running late. They weren't caught in traffic. They'd never planned to come. And I didn't break down. I didn't yell or cry or throw anything. I just sank into one of those folding rental chairs and let the quiet buzz of the city do what my family couldn't, keep me company. I scrolled through every message. Every fake promise. All those hollow "we're so proud of you" lines that led to this. The food sat there, untouched. The venue manager gave me a soft, sorry look and told me he wouldn't charge for the extra hour. I just nodded, no words left to give. When I finally got home to the apartment I paid for with the patchwork of freelance gigs I somehow kept up while still making the dean's list, I sat on the edge of my bed and stared up at the ceiling. That same ceiling I used to lie under, dreaming of big things, raises, trips, moments where someone would actually toast to me and remember my name halfway through. And then it hit me clean and sudden like someone flipped on a light I didn't know was there. They needed me more than I ever needed them. So I grabbed my laptop. I logged into every account I had opened for them, utilities, internet, even that streaming bundle Kadia begged to be added to because Hulu was too pricey. All of it in my name. Every bill. Every setup. I had done it all to feel like I belonged. But this time? It wasn't about getting even. Not really. It was about finally seeing things for what they were. No matter how many errands I ran or movie nights I funded, I was just filler in a story they'd written without me. I sent one group text. Simple. Good luck covering next month's bills without me. Then I blocked every number. Every single one. But that wasn't the end of it, not even close. 3 days later, the silence cracked. And when it did, it came in loud. It started with a Facebook post from my mom. One of those dramatic, passive-aggressive rants she loves, designed to sound wise and wounded but mostly just dripping with guilt trips and self-pity. Some people forget who was there for them when they had nothing. Just remember, karma's real. No names. No tags. But the comments lit up like fireworks. Aunt Celeste tossed in a popcorn gif. Uncle Victor posted a spill the tea meme. And Katia, because of course, commented, hope they realize family isn't optional. We're all we have. I watched it all play out like I was flipping through one of those old magazines in a waiting room, half interested, fully detached, already knowing I wasn't gonna buy into any of it. Deep down, I guess I thought someone might break the silence. Maybe Drew would shoot over a half-assed, hey, everything cool? Or maybe Dad would fake confusion, act like he didn't have the slightest clue what was going on. But nope. Not a word. Not until day 4. That morning, my phone lit up with a number I hadn't seen in a while, Dad's work phone. I let it ring. Then it rang again. And again. Then came a call from Mom's number. Then Katia. Then, out of nowhere, a text from Drew's girlfriend. Hey, I think there's some confusion. Did something happen? I didn't reply to any of them. But the one that actually made me laugh, sharp, bitter, came in at 2:19 p.m. Dad, now texting from his personal number, said, "Why is the internet shut off? I'm trying to log into work." That was it. No greeting. No, hey Miles. No mention of the party or what had happened. No apology. Just a complaint like I was some guy on payroll who missed a service ticket. It hit me right there, clear as day. I wasn't a son to them. Not really. I was the guy who kept the lights on. Their personal IT department. Tech support with a bloodline. I wanted to reply. God, I wanted to. I even typed out a few drafts, some laced with sarcasm, one just a link to a list of therapists. But in the end, I just shut off my phone and went to the gym instead. Later that night, I came home to 3 voicemails. They got more frantic with each one. Mom's voice was shaky, on the edge. "We don't understand what's happening. Your father can't log into his payroll. And the smart TV won't connect. Katia says she can't even get into the group plan. Did something happen? Can we talk, please? Still no, we're sorry we skipped your party. Still no, we should have been there." Just a bunch of complaints disguised as concern. Suddenly, because things stopped working, I was important again. By the end of the week, I started getting letters. Actual, physical letters. Because I blocked every digital way they had to reach me. The first one was from Grandma. Her handwriting looked just as I remembered, soft, old-fashioned, the kind that belongs in a keepsake box. It read, "Miles, I don't know what's going on, but everyone's upset. Please call your mother. She's been crying for days." Crying? Now she was crying? Where were those tears when I was sitting alone on a rooftop staring at untouched coconut shrimp and a sheet cake nobody showed up for? Where were they when I dropped my graduation photos into the family group chat and got 3 likes and 0 comments? Where was the emotion when I begged for just one night? Still, Grandma had always been kind. She was the only one who didn't outright mistreat me, even if she didn't always get it. So I called her. She picked up on the first ring, her voice pouring out like steam from a kettle. "Oh, thank God, Miles. You had me worried sick." "I'm okay, Grandma," I said. "I know, honey. But your mother? She's a mess." "Is that right?" "She said you've been distant. That you lashed out and shut everything off without saying anything." I clenched the phone a little tighter. "Did she mention the graduation party?" Silence. Then she said slowly. She said something about a mix-up. That it was thrown together last minute and no one got proper notice. I felt my face flush. A mix-up? I had receipts. Literally. Calendar invites. Text threads. I even had a voice memo from Katia saying, "We're all set for Saturday." "I can't wait." "Grandma," I said, trying to stay calm, but my voice shook. "I sent everything. Weeks ahead. I paid for the whole thing. The food. The venue. I made sure it fit their schedules. They didn't forget. They chose not to show up." More silence. Then her voice came back, softer this time. "I be mouse of you, sweetheart." "I do. But your mother swears." "Of course she does. Because if she admits the truth, she'd have to admit she only cares when it's convenient for her." That's when Grandma said something that clung to me for days after. "You've always been the one trying the hardest, Miles. Maybe it's time you let them try for once." We didn't talk much after that. Just a few goodbyes. I promised I'd call her again. And I meant it. But I didn't unblock anyone. I didn't start paying those bills again. I didn't cave. Instead, I started living like a man who finally felt free. And honestly, I was. Except freedom has a way of shaking the dust out of people. And desperate folks? They don't go down without a fight. About a week later, something happened that flipped everything on its head. It was a Thursday morning, sunny, peaceful. I just come back from a meeting with a freelance client, famizing oddly light for a guy who'd basically torched his family ties. The silence in my apartment had started to feel like a blessing. No buzzing phone. No guilt-laced favors. Just me, the low hum of the fridge, and the steady rhythm of peace. Then I saw it. An envelope taped to my door. At first, I thought it was just a D. Miles Very slip or some building notice. But then I saw my name scrawled across the front in thick, slanted Sharpie. No return address. No postage. Just stuck there like a kid's attempt at a dramatic scene. I peeled it off, opened it carefully. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Typed. Double-spaced. Angry. Miles? I don't know who you think you are, but this little tantrum has gone too far. We've bent over backwards for you your entire life, and one missed party doesn't justify this kind of disrespect. Your father can't work. Katia lost her Hulu. Grandma's worried sick. You're punishing everyone over something you imagined. It's childish and cruel. I hope you're proud. Mom. No, love. No, sincerely. Not even a hint of remorse or ownership. Just a letter that read more like a passive-aggressive HR warning than anything a mother would write to her son. And you know what? I almost laughed. Almost. That letter sat in my hand like a slap that didn't sting right away. It just lingered, slow and heavy, crawling up my arm and wrapping tight around my throat. And right then it hit me like a cold gust of truth. There wasn't going to be an apology. No quiet moment of realization. No surprise visit with teary eyes and a hug that came too late. Nope. That wasn't who my mother was. She wasn't the kind to say she was wrong, not out loud. She was the kind to rewrite the script, pass it around like gospel, and hope everyone else memorized her lines. And maybe they would've. Maybe Grandma, Drew, the whole crew would have nodded along, swallowing whatever version she served like they had so many times before. But this time, I wasn't letting it slide. I wasn't going to sit back and play the quiet, forgotten one. That night, I pulled up the graduation slideshow I'd made for the rooftop party no one showed up to. Still had it tucked away in an old folder on my laptop. I opened a free site builder, dropped the photos in, me in my cap and gown, the venue, the food nobody touched. I added screenshots of every text where they'd confirmed, can't wait, we'll be there, the voice memo from Katia saying we're all set for Saturday. I even uploaded the playlist I'd spent hours putting together, songs I never got to hear play. Then I typed a single sentence across the top in bold. Here's the graduation party you all missed. Not because you forgot, but because I never mattered enough for you to show up. I published it and shared it to my socials. No tags. Comments turned off. No drama, just facts, documented and permanent. And it blew up. Old college friends I hadn't heard from in forever sent messages like, this wrecked me and I can't be Miles if they did that to you. Even a few people I barely knew reposted it, calling it raw and real, the most honest thing I've read in a long time. By the next morning, I had 3 missed calls from Katia, 2 from Dad, and 1 voicemail from Mom. Her voice was shaky this time, but still stuck on spin. Miles, this is too far. You're humiliating us. Why are you doing this? Why? Because for once, they were finally getting a taste of how I'd felt all my life, unseen, unheard, and completely overlooked. That weekend, things kicked into high gear. Katia showed up at my apartment. I didn't open the door. She pounded on it for a full 5 minutes before yelling through the wood. You're not the only one who's had it rough, you know. We all have our issues. I stood on the other side, arms folded, stone quiet. Are you really just gonna ghost us forever? Over a party? But it was never just about the party. That was just the tip of a mountain I'd been carrying for years. It was about every time they made me feel like I was a task on their to-do list instead of a person they wanted in their lives. Every time I gave, and when I finally asked for something back, just a little recognition, they told me I was being dramatic. It was about all the times I shrank myself down so they could stretch out their egos. And now that I had finally raised my voice, they were scrambling. Not because they felt guilty, because their comfort was slipping away. A few days later, I found out they were trying to spin it. Drew posted something vague and holier than thou about how family's messy, but it's always worth fighting for. Katia commented underneath, people forget how much we've done for him. I didn't take the bait. I didn't respond to her shouting at my door. I didn't answer Drew's damage control post. I didn't even glance at the growing stream of guilt-tripped messages sliding into my inbox. You're being unfair. We're still family. This isn't how grown-ups handle things. The irony would have been hilarious if it hadn't been so damn sad. Because for years I was the only one acting like an adult. The only one taking care of things while the rest of them played emotional hot potato. But I'd learned something. Silence only works until they start spinning it into something it's not. Until they call it a phase, or a tantrum, or worst of all, betrayal. So if I really wanted to move forward, I had to do more than defend myself. I had to cut the strings they didn't even realize were still attached. I started with the money. See, I hadn't just been paying utility bills. I'd been quietly propping up a lot more. A few years back, after I landed my first solid internship, Mom asked if I could add the family's phones to my plan. Said it would save everyone a ton. I agreed without blinking. I was proud, honestly. Felt like I was finally doing something that mattered. Then Drew's old car crapped out, and I co-signed on a newer one so he could start D-miles veering for work. Dad told me it was just until Drew built his credit. Spoiler, he never did. Katia hit me up around the same time. Needed a little temporary help with rent until her Etsy shop took off. I wired her $1,200. She never mentioned it again. Not once. They figured I'd forget. That I'd never come collecting. They were wrong. I started by shutting off the phone plan. No heads up. No warnings. Just gone. I called the provider, explained what was going on, and had all 4 lines, mine, theirs, even Katia's, terminated by week's end. I ported my own number to a new carrier under a business account. Next up, the car. Since it was still legally in my name, and since Drew had been late more times than I could count, I called the dealership and revoked my payment authorization. The paperwork made it easy. Within 3 days, the car was flagged for repossession. As for Katia, I didn't even have to lift much of a finger. I had every Venmo receipt, every dollar tracked. I sent her a formal letter, just business, listing the amount, including proof of each transfer, and let her know it'd go to collections in 30 days unless she set up a payment plan. No anger, no drama, just math. I thought I'd get backlash. What I didn't expect was panic. Drew called me from a number I didn't recognize. Dude, what is this? They're trying to take my car. Mom left a voicemail, her voice thick with tears. Miles, please. This has gone too far. You're tearing your own family apart. Katia didn't call. She emailed. Yeah, emailed. Like it was a job interview or a dispute with customer service. She wrote that she felt blindsided, betrayed, that I was weaponizing money against people who loved me. Loved me? No, they loved what I did for them. The money, the help, the silence. And now that I was taking all that away, they were flailing, gasping for air in a vacuum they'd created themselves. I stayed quiet for another week. Then I wrote one final message. Not to them, to everyone else. It wasn't angry. It wasn't bitter. Just honest. I posted about what it was like growing up in a family where I was expected to stay in the background, where achievements got brushed aside and milestones were treated like errands, where my support was expected, but my needs were inconvenient. I didn't name names. No drama. No dirty laundry. Just truth. I talked about the graduation party no one showed up to, the bills I paid, the debts they never acknowledged. I shared it on my personal blog. Barely anyone followed me there anymore. Just a handful of friends who still checked in from time to time. But somehow the post found legs. It got shared, then shared again, quietly passed along, dropped into inboxes, slipped into group chats. And then the messages started rolling in. People I hadn't heard from in years, old teachers, classmates, neighbors, reached out. Folks who remembered how much I did for my family, who always assumed I was the strong one, the stable one. Most of them said the same thing. I had no idea. You always seemed like you had it together. Yeah. That was the point. I'd been trained to keep everything looking fine on the outside, make sure everyone else felt comfortable, even if it meant starving for a little validation of my own. But not anymore. About 2 weeks after that post, Grandma called. I answered as I always did for her. She was quiet at first, then she said something that knocked the air right out of my lungs. They've started talking, she said. Really talking. Not just to me. To each other. She told me Mom had been forced to ask for help from her own siblings, most of whom hadn't been around in years. Drew was working longer hours now, picking up shifts to stay on top of his payments. Katia had started running flash sales on her store just to keep up with rent now that it was no longer subsidized. It wasn't revenge. It was accountability. I didn't take pleasure in watching them scramble. But I didn't swoop in to rescue them either. Because for the first time I wasn't the cleanup crew. I wasn't the fallback plan. I wasn't the safety net. I was free. And I didn't just sit in that freedom, I built something out of it. With all that emotional space finally cleared out, I could breathe. I poured that energy into my career and launched my own freelance tech consulting firm. Picked up clients who respected my time. Who paid on time. Who didn't treat me like a convenience or an afterthought. I traveled for work, Seattle, Boston, even spent a few weeks in Berlin. And every time I passed a rooftop venue or saw a family snapping graduation photos, I didn't feel that old ache in my chest anymore. I felt whole. I still talk to Grandma. She's the only one who never tried to guilt me, never tried to gaslight me into believing I was the problem. Sometimes she gives me small updates. Tells me Drew's maturing, little by little. That mom's quieter these days. That Katia's finally learning how to manage a budget. I don't ask for those updates. But I don't stop her either. I think she knows I'm not sitting around waiting for redemption. I'm just done. Maybe one day, years down the line, someone from the family will reach out again. Maybe they'll say the words I once wanted to hear. Maybe they'll even mean them. But by then, I won't be waiting. Because healing didn't come from hearing sorry. It came from realizing I never needed it in the first place.